Colin Steen. Here's Steen, it's a goal! It's a goal by Steen, what a goal!
Only 3 Scottish football clubs have ever won a major European competition. But just as the names of famous battles can be seen in the streets of a small town, so Scottish success in Europe finds a hopeful echo among the humbler Scottish clubs.
Well, when we started winning this, they wanted to rename us and call us Real Forfar and Atletico Forfar. But it doesn't look really realistic as we look across the country just now. But, you know, there's wonderful things have happened in this world, and you never know.
You never know might be the motto of provincial Scottish football. The pub wisdom among supporters of the less successful teams has always been the opposition only have 11 men in the park, the same as we have. Unexpected things can happen, and they often do. When St Mirren started to score against Slavia Prague, they were breaching more than a defence. They were puncturing an assumption. One of the most famous European capitals wasn't necessarily superior to a grey west of Scotland town. As the realisation grew of what was happening, Paisley became for a night one of the footballing capitals of Europe. St Mirren were not only scoring a victory, they were fulfilling for their fans the dream of every smaller club's supporters. If it can come true for them, why not for us? That dream of an identity expressed on the football park is the first key to the importance club football has had in Scotland. But the harsh truth is that very few of the smaller clubs have ever fulfilled that dream, except in a comparative way. Their historic victories have tended to be against opposition even less well known than themselves. Stirling Albion's most spectacular win came in the Scottish Cup on the 8th of December 1984. They won 20-0, but then their opposition was Selkirk, a name illustrious more for rugby than for football. The Arbroath team of 1885 won 36-0 in the Scottish Cup, but the defeated side, Aberdeen Bonaccord, is reputed to have been a cricket team. Perhaps they played with bats. More substantial realisations of the small club's dream have happened. In 1938, East Fife became the only second division club to win the Scottish Cup. The Cup has always been the most likely route for a small club towards success. Unlike the sustained effort required to win the league, the Cup is a more immediate and dramatic competition. To fans and players alike, it offers sudden death or sudden glory. In 1952, before 136,000 fans, the glory went to Motherwell. Their hold on the substance behind the dream was brief.
This promises to be a battle royal, for both teams have won the Cup twice in their history, and both are determined to bring off the third. But neither side's defence is giving anything away. Now the Hibernian end, with slippery Joe Coyle giving the defence a headache. Leslie dives and McClellan gets it clear. Now it's Coyle again. He runs onto it and shoots, and it's off Baxter's toe into the net. And so the battle sways to and fro, with Hibs doing their best to land that precious equaliser. But Clyde hang on to their lead till the end, and when the whistle blows, it's Harry Haddock who receives the cup from Mr. John Park, President of the Scottish FA. Well done, Clyde. You earned it the hard way against very determined opponents.
In 1959, Aberdeen were struggling to avoid relegation. St Mirren hadn't been doing too well in the league either when the Scottish Cup competition began, but the two teams contested the Cup final. Tommy Bryceland gave the first indication that St Mirren were going to win the Scottish Cup for only the second time. His improvised dance would be more fully developed in the streets of Paisley later that day. St Mirren had cause for pride. They were a part-time team who had the individual talent and self-confidence to beat Celtic 4-0 in the semi-final. Aberdeen were not about to halt the run of a side which had overwhelmed one of the old firm. Jerry Baker scored the goal that finally convinced Aberdeen. St Mirren 3, Aberdeen 1. In 1961, Dunfermline Athletic were in the Scottish Cup final for the first time. They refused to be intimidated by Celtic. The game came to be known as Connacht's Final, in honour of the Dunfermline goalkeeper. But another famous name played some part in the victory.
And that's Jock Steen coming in. I've never seen such a bunch of sandboys.
Not all the less famous teams have had their greatest moments in the Cup.
McLean. It's a beautiful one. Scudder's a goal.
In 1965, on a day as bright as the memory of a childhood summer, Kilmarnock needed to beat Hearts by 2 goals to win the Scottish League. They had been runners-up for the 2 previous seasons.
Still Black. Putting it forward to McElroy. And it's a goal!
But it still only needed Hearts to score 1 goal to win the title.
Ferguson. Well, I don't know how long this game's going to go on. It's played well overdue by me. A great save! Magnificent save by Ferguson. Willie Waddle has gone mad. He's running onto the field. There is Willie Waddle. Right on he goes. There is Willie Waddle, and what a joyful man he must be. Fantastic scenes. Waddle being hugged by supporters, by players.
Some famous moments have been so unexpected that history didn't have a television camera handy. Scottish Cup first round 1967. Berwick Rangers 1, Glasgow Rangers 0.
Up comes Hansen for this. It's a good one. Cleared off the line. And it's there. It's a goal. It's a phone towards Laurie. Laurie with it. Oh, what a goal by Laurie. Laurie taking that. And it's almost there. It's a goal. It's number 3 for Thistle, almost unbelievably. The chip ball, there's ball in there, it's a goal.
Glasgow Celtic 1, Partick Thistle 4. But most of the games that have gone against the bookies' odds have not caused such great surprise.
There's Stanton with a chance, and it's there.
When Hibernian beat Celtic 2-1 in the League Cup final of 1973, they were confirming what football history has taught. Usually it takes a big team to beat a big team.
And it's a goal. Jim O'Rourke.
In Scotland, the major clubs have tended to divide the honours among themselves. The smaller teams have mainly fed their dreams by preying on one another. Like a home movie called The Goalkeeper's Nightmare, Stirling Albion supporters may rerun in memory their total demolition of Selkirk. But more substantial achievements for small clubs have nearly always proved elusive. In the semi-final replay of the Scottish Cup in 1982, Forfar were determined not to accept the assumed superiority of Rangers. Their persistent belief in themselves earned them a respite from what many had thought was the inevitable. But Rangers' embarrassment was temporary. Forfar lost 3-1. Yet again, a small club had found that they were not only playing against 11 men, but were fighting against the weight of a long and formidable tradition. Glasgow Rangers' splendid trophy room at Ibrox Park is a reminder of the difficult process the dream of any small club must undergo before it is realised. The dream has to find the mysterious alchemy by which to convert itself into silver. The trophies of Forfar poignantly highlight the difference in stature between the big clubs and the small ones. Sitting in a homely group around the television set, they demonstrate how the small clubs function like cottage industries within a factory economy. The dream of clubs like Forfar Athletic, peaceful in its rural setting, remains the first key to the importance football has had in Scotland. But before it can open the door to significant success, it must be combined with a second key, the regular click of the turnstiles.
Well, at that time there were only maybe about 150, which was absolutely no use, and we thought if we could get to 1,000, roughly a tenth of the population, that it would be worthwhile. We're not in it for money. We're in to have a game for the community, if you like, for a place this size. The folk were waiting there, and we got up to 1 or 2 gates of 4,000 and 5,000 with some special games. So we had a lucky run to begin with, and that started the interest.
But if for Forfar crowds of 1,000 represent viability, they would be equivalent to the Wall Street crash for Rangers. The game, which began as an amateur pastime in Scotland, became very big business. The current overheads mean that even the biggest clubs need more money than comes through the gate.
Rangers do live from the gate money. The pools are paying off the stand and nothing else. They do the ground improvements. Rangers gate receipts, the commercial activities, is still one of the best in Britain. Advertising, shirt advertising, sponsorship, the C.R. Smith sponsorship. These are all things that do bring in the money. I don't think you could live just on solely gates. That would be very difficult. But altogether, we can do it.
If Rangers don't find it easy to live solely by gates, what chance of Forfar? They too have made a brave, if more modest attempt to come to terms with the realities of modern football.
We started a lottery. We have a 50-50 that a Canadian chairman suggested to us, just with the supporters club working very, very hard, and 2 or 3 of the board looking after the lottery and various things like that, various auctions we have. We've got to work to do it, but it's worthwhile.
But no matter how hard a club like Forfar may work, the dream keeps being interrupted by the brute facts of a marketplace where even club football pools can bring in a fortune.
Last year we had a record one of nearly £7 million, which is quite astonishing in a way because it's very much larger than the turnover of the club, which I think you're talking about £1.5 million, that kind of thing from the club. We're probably 4 or 5 times larger than Rangers, but that's a purely commercial thing, and obviously, socially, we are much less important than Rangers.
Scottish football has always believed in the triumph of underdogs. The game became for us, to some extent, an expression of nationality in defiance of the political facts. Perhaps that's one reason why we have been reluctant to give up the dream that all you need is skill.
Well, we all dream. We all dream. We do our best. I mean, nobody's kidding ourselves. And even last year, we led the league for a considerable period, and the media were on to us, so promotion this and promotion that. And really, within ourselves, I think we knew it was a wee bit beyond us. How we go this year, I don't know. But you've got to aim for that. If we don't aim for it, we'll never get it. That's one thing's for sure.
The aim is admirable. But the development of football has meant that more and more people have questioned the structure of the game. Some teams are said to be competing in an arena for which they are financially ill-equipped. Some bigger clubs have felt that their potential is being limited.
The smaller clubs, they know with the sponsorship money and they can live, but they'll never achieve the heights, of Premier League status. And this is where you can get a conflict of opinion.
Isn't it right there should be targets for everybody in this game? Isn't it right that we should have something to aim for? And that's what every club aims for, is to play in the highest possible level. Never believe the stories you get that people don't want promotion.
What happens in Scottish football is presided over finally by the Scottish Football Association. For some time now, they have been the ultimate arbiters in a debate over the future of Scottish football. Is it time for the haphazard ambitions of the smaller clubs to make way for the more business-like demands of the modern game?
Well, I've always felt that Scotland, with all our callousness and rebelliousness and wanting to feel a separate identity and tremendous energy we have, they're still running through a great hardcore of conservatism with a small c. People are very conservative, even in Glasgow, still wear the bowler hats, still want to be safe. And by and large, we're not very receptive to good ideas, or maybe what they think are revolutionary ideas. Change is something to be resisted.
Some clubs want to get there. They are ambitious, and good luck to them. You can't hold that against them. I would be the same if I was chairman of one of these clubs. But a lot of them realise that they're never going to achieve that. In the first place, their parks are not big enough to hold the capacity of crowds that would be needed. So I can't really see them surviving in that world.
Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to play in the highest possible level, and why not? The league is very, very tight. It's not the place for part-time clubs, really. But the answer is, if we're allowed to play, we'll survive. If we're not allowed to play, we won't survive.
I think eventually there will be a few principal clubs playing at the highest level with a certain level of professional performer. And I think in some days in the future there'll be a franchise system as we have in Europe or in America.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're a place for Dundee United Scottish football, and Dundee United. How come? They're a place for them, and yet no, they're no place for Dunfermline, who have got the potential. They've got great potential. They've got good stand, good ground, and everything else, but they haven't got the players. Well, they haven't got a top-class team. Like Aberdeen was nothing at one time, but they've come right up. They've sold well. Clydebank is doing it now. They're selling well. They're buying well. And their scouting system's good. If they're a place for Clydebank, they're a place for Albion Rovers, surely.
I honestly don't think that way. I think that it's either financially viable or not. I think that it's ludicrous that there's so many small clubs in all the areas, such as Fife and even in the Sarah Tayside, even in Dundee. What we were able to afford and how many people wanted to come to the game in years gone past doesn't matter. As far as I'm concerned, it's only the people that want to come along now that matters, and I still think it ludicrous that there are so many small clubs. I honestly believe that football would be better if there were more successful clubs, and in that I honestly believe that clubs would be more successful if they joined ranks and pooled resources than at the moment where it's spread far too thin over the ground.
Well, I found in my short experience as a manager at any meetings we go to, every manager bats for his own club. Nobody's for the good of Scottish football. If it's Aberdeen or Dundee United or Rangers or Celtic or Partick Thistle or St Johnstone or Forfar, we're all in for us. I don't believe this for the good of Scottish football. We're serving the public here. People here wouldn't go to other matches. We give them an identification of something to go to together, a sense of belonging. We're serving a purpose in this area, and as far as I'm concerned, there's a very valuable place in the community for people like us.
No, I think on a political level, I think the government have now decided that, yes, they want soccer, but in a certain level in terms of stadia, facility, and equally it's got to be self-funding. The only way that can be done is not by underwriting those clubs, which unfortunately don't have both the customers and the economic base to sustain themselves. I mean, in the essence, the marketplace and competition is not sustained in Scottish football. If it was any other industry, in fact, it would rationalise itself purely by demand and supply. We tinker with it just now. We've got sponsorship money which is now used to underwrite less fortunate clubs. But I think eventually reality will settle. And I'm determined that Hearts Football Club will be one of the clubs that will participate in the new generation, whatever it may be.
I don't think money can buy football players. I don't think so. Because Crystal Palace and Prushy millionaires in their time, aren't they? Right? And they know how to team yet.
The other main governing body of Scottish football, the Scottish Football League, is an association formed by the clubs themselves. It has reached a new agreement. In effect, this will make it less easy for smaller clubs to play in the Premier League, and it will give the bigger clubs significantly more voting power. Is the dream of the small clubs losing out to the turnstile?
Scottish Football League and the 38 member clubs that we have had, we're celebrating our centenary in 5 years' time, and I'm quite confident that the member clubs who are present today will be with us in 1990, which is our centenary.
But by then the balance of power will have shifted significantly. One man who saw early the need for the game to rationalise itself like an unprofitable business was Wallace Mercer. His vision of how football should be run to survive healthily has been supported by exciting performances on the field. The current success of Hearts contrasts vividly with the condition of the club he bought, which was close to financial ruin.
Well, there obviously had been substantial income over the years, which had been squandered. You know, before the cancellation of the maximum wage, where did the money go? How could it be frittered away? I mean, it's still a very cash-conscious business. We, in fact, are could be one of the most profitable clubs in the United Kingdom. Where did it go? I mean, it was like buying a shop with no stock when I bought the club. The money that I paid, in fact, went to pay off the overdraft. It didn't go to the benefit of the business. So really, in fact, in 4 years, we've turned it around quite considerably. I never realised that Hearts were in such a mess. I also never realised the extent of the responsibilities and pressure, and also the radical impact on your business. Although you approach the business as a businessman, it's also a very emotional thing, and you can't always quantify it in the balance sheet. Well, my private life and my football club existence is one and the same, and my business. The only reason I've made any modicum of success is over 20 years. I have worked for my business, and my business has worked for me. But it is important to be able to live and compete with it, because I've also got players and managers who are under that pressure all the time. And that's one of the reasons I think we've got our act together at Tynecastle, is because there is a degree of commitment from the top to the bottom. And in some ways we're all a little mad, because there must be easier ways of earning a living.
A large part of Hearts' success is due to a management team which is involved in the game both on and off the field. The player assistant manager is Sandy Jardine. His belief in the value of having management on the park is endorsed by the player manager, Alec MacDonald.
Oh, very much so, yeah. It's very important. Obviously, if there's a bad result, then somebody's got to lift the team and somebody's got to give them stick, and obviously we've got that down to a T. And it just came naturally. It wasn't pre-arranged. I think it's just a natural ability, obviously, that Sandy has got, you know, myself, and it's worked very well.
I think the thing about that is that these young players don't realise it yet, but later on in their career they will then realise that the chance they had to play with players like ourselves and Jimmy Bowen and Willie Johnson, who basically have taught them a lot of things. And the good thing about being a player manager or a player assistant manager is when you're on the park, you can get to people straight away. You know, like say, you see managers sitting on the bench and that, and some of them are pulling their hair out if they've got here, and they're cracking up. Whereas on the park, you can get to people very quickly, and it does help them that way.
Levine. High one again. Robertson with a shot. Oh, what a goal! Oh, a brilliant goal!
Well, everybody talks about potential supporters. I mean, I get that when I first came to Tynecastle about the sleeping giants. I think really the only way you can find out if you won something, I think that's a big tester to see what kind of support you can bring in through the doors. And really now that's what the support are looking for. They're looking for success. And I don't think there's any problem at Tynecastle. On the lean years, the years that I've been here, they've been excellent. Even in the first division, they turn out. They will turn out for big games. They will go away and support us from home. I think they've been excellent. I think you will probably find that if you do get a bit of success, then they will come out in big numbers.
Nice ball to Berry. It's in a good position. Billy Thompson. Here's a great chance. He scored. 2-0. Sandy Clark.
In the end, in fact, it's a meaningless investment, because you can't own the heart and soul of a community. You don't look at it as a bricks and mortars investment. You look at it as something which the people can respond to. And to actually see the live theatre, 22,000 customers there, the players enjoying themselves, and the whole vibrance of that in itself is reward.
Here could be a very interesting break. There's no offside. This could show it. Robertson must score. He must, yes. Oh. And he's not praying. That does it. His second constant. Come on.
The achievement of the new setup at Hearts is a benign challenge to Scottish football's institutionalised sense of itself. Football had a humble birth. It then gained and maintained such popularity among working-class people that it became perhaps too big for its boots. It has had to adjust to the fact that the circumstances which created it have changed.
I've come from a community which was at one time a vibrant, throbbing area of Glasgow with the shipyards and the white engineering, and my father worked in the shipyards, and my brother worked in the shipyards, and my uncles worked in the shipyards, and at one time, you know, the population of Govan was 90,000 people, you know, and to be lost, and how unemployment's affected the place. I was down at that famous boys' club, Habanero. I was a member of that for many years, and the lad who runs that, Bob Innes, has been there for 40 years. And now he's in an old church, working at an old church, trying to send some young boys on their merry way in a much more difficult circumstance than I had as a boy. For instance, when I was a boy, it wasn't, were you going to get a job? What were you going to work at? I mean, you had a choice.
Scottish football, like the rest of the country, has felt the economic pinch. The raw talent is still there in abundance, but so fierce is the competition for survival in the game that teams have needed to become more sophisticated in ways of refining it.
Probably all the directors will be jumping in their seats at the moment, worried about giving managers 7-year contracts, but without any shadow of doubt, as far as I'm concerned, it takes that sort of length of time before you get real fruition to any youth policy. And to me, that's the only way to build any club, is by bringing younger players through, because far too many clubs in the past have tried to buy success, and most of them have failed.
Scottish football's belief in the maverick individual talent, which is the player's equivalent of the small team that can make it, is under threat. Perhaps it is time to put the Tanner ball in a glass case. These days, big teams like Aberdeen go less often to the smaller clubs to find new players. They prefer to find them for themselves, to catch them early and bring them on. The young player tends to be introduced much sooner to the seriousness of the business. Talent finds itself integrating more quickly with career.
I used to go about the school games on a Saturday morning when I started to learn something about scouting myself when I was a manager at St Mirren, and I met some tremendous scouts who have a great gift. It is a talent. Lads like Jimmy Dickey at Manchester United and John Barr at Leeds United, and I learned so much off of them at an early age. So I had a grasp of what I was looking for in the scouting side of it. I had a grasp of how the schools association operated and boys clubs operated. So I have a good knowledge of that particular field. So the things that I'm looking for are easily identifiable, really. And all I say to our own scouts is make sure you don't bring bad players, because that's so important. We know that they have a talent for picking boys with natural ability, good skill, and that's the kind of a talent the scout has. But also, what I do say to them, they've got to have this enthusiasm for the game, a zest for life.
In the more highly organised structure of football today, it is important that enthusiasm and zest aren't misused. S-forms give the professional club first option on a schoolboy player.
We don't sign a lot of S-forms. We only have about 12 at the most ever. I think you're allowed to sign as much as 30. In fact, I couldn't even tell you that because I'm not really bothered about checking it. I don't believe that 30 boys could make it. And I know there are many clubs who do this, and I know there are many clubs who keep forms in a drawer and then register players, which is really, I find, really, I don't know, I abhor that type of system. And it happens, but the abuse of S-forms is terrible in our game. But in the main, we like to think that everyone who signs for us has an outstanding chance of making it. And there have been many players over the years here that have said to the parents, look, I'm not going to sign your boy just now because I'm really not 100% sure that he's going to be an Aberdeen player. Now it's not just an Aberdeen player who could play in the reserve team or whatever. It's one who can compete in finals at Hampden or win trophies, championship trophies. That's the kind of level or the standard we're looking for. And I know that you can never really tell at 13, 14, but you've got to be as sure in your mind as possible before you do that thing. Also, a lot depends on the boy himself. If he has the ambition and the hunger to succeed, you generally find that they have a better chance. If we can get a boy at 13, we can develop him in some ways in terms of his technical ability before he comes to us at 16. We go down to Glasgow once a month to coach our S-forms, and that is working well for us. And of course, they come up here every holiday period. So that we are preparing them long before they become full-time professionals.
But there is a danger in professionalising a young player's instincts too early. Scottish football at its best has always resisted regimentation. It has been an irrepressible display of individuality, an unrehearsed expression of self, a subversive dance of Scottishness. Football has mattered to Scots precisely as a spontaneous declaration of identity.
1, 2, 1.
Jimmy Johnston's training of Celtic's S-form boys can only be good for the game. 2 nights a week at Helenvale, he teaches them. It's not easy to see what a talent as unique as Jimmy Johnstone can teach us, except that we will never be like him. But perhaps proximity to magic can have magical results. Certainly it should remind us that the game is about joy through controlled physical exuberance. Jimmy Johnstone's teaching by example should be an effective antidote to some of the more mechanical aspects of the modern game.
I think it's gone completely. I don't know, they're just like really like robots, a lot of players that are playing today. Because first and foremost, I think you've got to entertain. You're an entertainer. And I think that to do that, I think you've got to practice at it. And that's what's missing.
Go forward, well done, son. That right, fat early.
Jimmy, switch it, Jimmy.
When you go.
Jimmy. Yes, Jerry.
You've got to entertain. I think that's a must. I think that is the answer. That's what would bring people back into the game. Every kind of sport or anything that you find somebody that's been successful in, particularly sport, snooker or whatever you want to do, if you go and ask them, they'll say the very same. It's limited hours of just continual practice. That's a must. With these boys just now that I'm training, they're 16 years of age. I train them twice a week. But what I'd like them to do, what I'd hope they would do is when they go away from here, I've asked them, I tell them that they don't do enough here, just for a couple of hours with me every night. I would want them to go. And they can do it, And I just think, again, if they work at it really hard, as I've said, I think there's a possibility. But if they don't, then they can forget it.
Oh, you get that? Finished.
If the Scottish under-18 squad are an accurate indication, the omens are good. They have had considerable success in international competition. They have not only won often, but they have won with style. The young players have discovered early the way an ability to play football can widen the horizons of a boy's life. Iceland becomes a natural backdrop to a game. Much of their success is due to the knowledge, enthusiasm and vision of their director of coaching, Andy Roxburgh. He coaches them in more than football.
Well, normally we're very successful, but on occasion we've had a mishap. I mean, the stadium that's right behind us is an example of that. In an international youth match we held there some years ago, the two teams were lined up before the game and they played at the Queen. And then there was a slight pause when the fellow up in the booth changed the record over in order to play the Icelandic national anthem. And one of our players was so nervous about playing in this youth international match. And I must remind you, of course, that there's about 10,000 people at this game and they can all speak English. So one of our diplomats was so nervous about the start of this game, and in this slight pause as the guy was changing the record, he shouted at the top of his voice, "Let's get right into these bloody Eskimos." Now, for a start, his geography leaves a lot to be desired, and secondly, his lack of diplomacy was most embarrassing to us. We are trying to develop thinking, imaginative players of the kind like John Wart, Charlie Nicholas, Paul McStay and so on. This young lad on this occasion, I'm afraid, was one of our failures. If you were to ask me about the Scots and how they express themselves, I usually use and this will sound rather poetic, but I always quote the fellow J.B. Priestley, who said that football was both hurtling with conflict and yet passionate and beautiful in its art. Now, to me, that's Scottish football. It is passionate on the one hand, but it can also be artistic, in other words, very skillful, particularly with the individualist side of it. That, by the way, was a remarkable statement that to be made, especially as the guy was English.
So, lad in Italy showed me this one. Can't handle it, lads, but here we go. The first touch is the vital one. Roll it past the outside of your body and then swing the leg round behind to get the ball. So from there, roll, flick, we're off. Gee whiz, third time was lucky. Go.
What is most hopeful in Andy Roxburgh's training methods is that he sees such practice as a means towards self-expression, not as a substitute for it.
There, jam, flick. Notice the way you bounce and you twist in the one movement. And then this lad, Nene from Brazil, he did this in the match when he was trapped in a corner. Here's what he did. He was trapped. He rolled the ball up his standing leg and volleyed it away. He went, whoop, pew. like that, only his went about 30 yards. OK, you got the idea? Try.
I know I'm called the director of coaching, but I don't particularly like the word because in Scotland it seems to suggest negative tactics and robot play and so on. And I would rather call it teaching. Now, education is about liberating people, freeing them, and that's my attitude. In other words, if we educate them well, then the players will make their own decisions in the game and they won't be looking at dugouts. So the idea behind it is that we should educate them in terms of their basic skill and their knowledge of the game.
Heels jammed in, now flick. See the difference? Jam it, flick. Very good. Superb. Walter Smith will be pleased when you went. Magnificent. Because he can't do it, right? I mean, you can score goals, which he can't either. So watch. Here's the ball. We get the touch calm, and we go, and we play it. You actually backheel it in the volley from the ear. Right, try those as well.
Many people will actually say to me, my counterparts in Europe will say to me, I just wish we could put that spark of enthusiasm into our players. It's the one great thing we have. It's because football is sort of loved by the community in Scotland. And your granny, your auntie, your uncle and so on would show you how to do various fancy tricks in the ball or would encourage you to go out and play in the street and so on. I mean, a number of the tricks, for example, I show kids now in courses. I mean, my uncle taught me to do them when I was 9 years old. So it was informal education. It's a community thing, if you like. Whereas now we've swung away to more formal teaching of football. But that's mainly because the street environment really has disappeared because of the traffic problem. If you play keepy up in the street nowadays, you get knocked down by a juggernaut. It's as simple as that.
Well played. Hold it up now.
Well, certainly a lot of young players are overplayed, certainly at the ages of 13, 14 and 15. They're playing for their school, the boys' club, the local amateur team, etc. I remember one boy in the under-15 school squad who played 4 times a week for 4 different teams. I would say that at the professional level, though, when they get to 16, 17 and 18, that is less of a problem because the clubs control it far more there. They'll play once or at most twice a week. I like the idea that our players are now in full-time. I'm slightly worried about the lower levels where they are overplayed and also many of the instructions that are given, that some of the hysterical things that happen. I mean, my colleague Walter Smith with the under-21 team told me an incident recently in Dundee with a Sunday league game where the boys were only 10 years old, where the coach of the team literally ran through the back of the goals and cleared a ball off the line to save his team losing a goal. Now, that's the kind of hysterical behaviour you get with people looking after younger kids in Scotland.
Whatever changes are taking place in the game, Scottish football continues to generate a sometimes hysterical passion, and it continues to produce individually exciting players.
Well, there's a great goal. Ali McCloist, right out the blue, right through the Celtic defence, 27 seconds. Who wants to attack? Swinging it round, this must be a chance, it is!
Something else that hasn't changed is that many of our more exciting players are destined to play in the English League.
And it does get through, McAvenny with a shot, it's there! 2-1.
McLaughlin's there. So is Dixon Speedy. Yes! The equaliser in the 89th minute. Stevens looking for Sharp, and he got behind Lawrenson there. Did Sharp? What a fantastic goal! An unbelievable finish from Graham Sharp.
When a Scottish footballer's ability results in his moving to the richer English League, the transition can lead to some confusion of lifestyle, as with Charlie Nicholas. The cultural differences are sometimes felt on the field as well as off it.
I think every team in Scotland generally wants to attack. I mean, we're known to be, as you say, Tana ball players, all skillful players like want to attack. And in England, you don't get a lot of them. You get very average players that make a lot of money here, and a lot of Scottish players would go, very good, you know. But that's the way the game is in England. A lot of very average players getting paid high salaries and just being professional, really.
A lot of success earlier, but Nicholas takes it and scores! Minute from half-time, And Charlie Nicholas.
I think if you look at a lot of the Scottish players, more often the most interesting to watch. Every team you look at, I mean, the people, if you're talking about, oh, such and such a good player, he's a good player, and then the Scottish player comes into the conversation, and the tempo changes, like you Gordon Strachans and that, you know. Frank McAvenny, he's doing really well in England. There's so many. Nicholas, I mean, he's got more interest than so many other people that come down here. Kenny, I mean, the list is endless, you know. Possibly they are the more, they quite often seem to be the more sort of individuals that are skillfully talented type.
Pat Nevin, like so many Scottish players who have played in England, tends to see football as an expression of his Scottishness.
Beautifully set up, though, by Pat Nevin. That was the classic Scottish dribble and pullback.
It's important for people not to let me forget, you know. They're so quick to remind you of the time. Oh, I'm proud to be Scottish anyway, and I don't really want to forget it. It's an attitude that possibly a lot of Scottish players that come down here. I'd say that about an awful lot of Scottish players, as a matter of fact. They come down and they definitely feel as if they've got something to prove to a whole country. And they've also got something to prove to people back home that they're doing quite well. That whatever it is, may they be noticed, recognised for international duties, or will they just be recognised by the friends that they've actually done something. And there is a lot of that down here, and I think it's, I don't know, it's an important thing to a lot of Scots away from home.
Over McCarthy's head this time. Nevin with Wilson, he's got round him. Will he try one from here? What a superb goal by Nevin!
The importance of football to Scots still leads to a fierce commitment, but is the commitment too extreme?
Football takes itself too seriously at times. Chairmen take themselves too seriously. All these restrictions and referees and players, really, to some extent, it's a joke. Football is about balance and perspective and humour and heroes and villains. There's a lot more serious things in life. And in fact, football really should be about escapism. And anyone who thinks that football is any more than just basic, good entertainment really is, I think, getting an inflated view of their own importance and their industry.
An inflated view of its own importance is perhaps an accurate diagnosis of the condition of Scottish football for a long time past. But will the new financial realism be enough to effect a cure? It might solve the money problems, but what about the psychological dependency of so many Scots for so long a time? What would the Scots be without their exaggerated love of football?
Crackpots, I'm tempted to say, but we're crackpots anyway.
English. What would Scotland be like without football? I think we might get a bit more work done, but I think we'd probably have an even higher level of alcoholism.
A lost nation. The game is national heritage.
It is very, very important. It is a big part of life in that country. If you say there's no football, the country would die.
More than probably most places, most countries, they are so soccer-minded, football-minded. I think it would be a terrible tragedy if there wasn't any there.
Oh, I don't think it'd be in existence at all. To them, it's a lovely incurable disease, football.
Certainly, as a nation, Scotland could be said to suffer from dependency on the football match. No matter how the club game is restructured, Scotland would presumably require changes that extend beyond the football field before it stopped asking the Scottish team to justify its national identity. Until that time, every goal looks like being received as if it were news of another Bannockburn.
Finlay won by McLeish. McLeish with a lay-off to Paul McStay. And a great goal from McStay!
Football especially has a special place in all our hearts. If one is a Scot, as I said to you before, we believe that Saturdays were made for football.
There's only one thing in Scotland in my life, and that's football. That's it. Only one thing in my life, football.
I mean, what they would do without their football, I just don't know, you know. I mean, I don't think they could ever take to cricket like they do in England.
The Scottish passion for football is admirable, But the intensity of hope the national team engenders sometimes seems out of proportion to the facts. The smaller teams in the country may be forced to realise their limitations, but the Scotland team is usually encouraged to ignore its own. Any victory, especially against England, has an effect dramatic enough to suggest the nation has been swallowing amphetamines. It can make you wonder what kind of feeling the experience of a Scottish victory counteracts.
Oh, God, what would they take up, you know? I certainly would hope they wouldn't take up religious bigotry as a full-time kind of pastime, you know. Let's hope that's not what football's replacing just now, although sometimes you feel it is. I don't know, the passions of so many men, where would they go? Maybe it would be good. Maybe it would people their passions of people that were, they could maybe strive to do something more individually. But I certainly hope not, because I think it's a great thing for Scotland. I think it's an important thing for the Scottish nation, as the interest in the World Cup has shown. Hope to God we get through.
There's a touchdown, McAvenny. He's done it. It's there, the second one. Brilliant.
Scotland are through to the World Cup finals for the 4th time in a row. That is in itself a remarkable achievement. Any withdrawal symptoms can be worried about afterwards. For the moment, it's the high.